Welcome to Accessing Life, a podcast focused on empowering people with developmental disabilities to live their best life. Accessing Life host Chester Finn is an internationally recognized disability rights advocate who has served on numerous state and national boards, helping to advise on disability policy. More and more accessible technology is available every day, but figuring out the right accessible tools for you can be tough. On this episode, we chat with Carol Napierski of the New York Alliance for Inclusion and Innovation about the best ways to find accessible tools to help your life. Also, we talk to a self-advocate about what accessible technology means for his life.
My name is Chester Finn, and we're here today to talk about accessibility for people with disabilities. Today, my guest is John Fritz. Hi, John.
Hi, Chester.
Can you tell people a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, my name is John Fritz, and I work with Sandy's. I'm a DEI specialist for Sandy's.
Yes. I'm very familiar with Sandy's. I participate in the organization myself.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is accessibility. I know you use, and your wife use different types of accessibility, and want to talk to you a little bit about your thoughts and how it's working for you, and those kind of things. Can you tell me what you use and what type of accessibility?
Yes, for walking I use a rollator, and I also have my lights turn on and off by electronics, which I use Alexa to do that. And then I got for adaptable equipment, I use I got a reacher, so I can grab things off the floor and stuff like that, because sometimes it's hard for me to bend down and pick things up and stuff like that. And then I got a jar opener, so I could open up jars and stuff like that. And for the computer, I usually use my wife's Apple computer.
Oh, okay. And do you find that very accessible?
Oh yeah, it's very accessible.
What can you do that you wouldn't be able to do on a regular computer? I mean, just without accessibility.
Well, it's kind of hard sometimes for me to look at the emails and stuff like that. So I use the large print to use it and stuff like that. And without it, it's kind of hard for me to even look at it sometimes, because sometimes those prints are so hard to read and stuff like that. And especially even I even use to follow the directions, because they come up with this whole fine small prints. I use the scanner to scan the directions, then I have it read to me.
Oh, okay. So you use the voiceover.
Yes.
Yeah, I find for myself that's very helpful for
Mm-hmm.
certain things, and they have improved a lot of accessibility on your phones and tablets and computers.
Yes.
Now for traveling, what accessibility do you have for that?
Mostly I use my rollator for businesses and stuff like that, and I do travel on the train, and I do use the STAR program.
Yes, I'm very familiar with STAR.
Mm-hmm.
It works for me when I need to go somewhere, and I set up the trips or whatever. So I haven't had any problems yet.
Yeah.
One of the things that's so important is I know I've been to your house a few times and played cards with your wife. She likes Uno, and
Hmm.
I beat her a little bit. And you know, the last time the game was still going, so we figured we would pick it up another day, but we never have been able to do that yet. Um, what about like in the wintertime in the snow? I know that a lot of people have trouble, in the snow. Is there anything that you have to kind of help out?
Not really, except for like for my feet. I got some ice grips for my feet. Basically, just put them over my motor shoes, and helps me walk over the, gives me more confidence to walk over the ice and stuff like that. And I got an ice tip on my cane if I use my cane.
Oh, okay. So it's like, is it sort of like a pick
Yes,
that sticks into the ice?
yes.
Yeah, I think one of those would come in handy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things about accessibility, they design a lot of things for us, for people having a disability, but they forget that everyone, no matter who you are, it comes a point where you might need some of that accessible
Yes.
equipment, and they need to kind of do more. One thing that I found that's important is that the cost of a lot of the accessible equipment in some cases is so high until some people can't afford it, so they don't even use it because of the price. We got to talk and work on people to bring the
Mm-hmm.
costs down, or work a different way to have people be able to use it. Did you purchase a lot of your equipment yourself, or did you have
Yes. Oh, I have.
organizations
In fact,
working?
I'm at one point. I'm thinking of purchasing a new walker because the walk I saw this one rural that it could travel on good like stone, gravel, things like that, and easy to climb on stairs. But like I said, Medicaid won't cover it, and it's gonna cost. Right now, I looked online. It costs about maybe $800
uh,
just to get it.
I mean, we have to do more advocacy to get
Mhm.
organizations and people to understand that these are things that we need, and you got to come down some on the cost, because it's a lot. I know my coworker, that's the producer of this show, Mike, has a lot of accessibility needs, and we talk about that all the time, how
Mhm.
important the cost of things are, and you know having accessibility is so important for
It's
us.
not, and even if it does cover a lot of it, you got to justify it. Like, do you really need? You have to let Medicaid know it's justified and stuff like that,
Yeah,
which you shouldn't have to.
I hope that they work on some of these issues, and we got to do more you know advocating for more accessibility, but not only accessibility for people with disabilities, but accessibility for all. Yeah, and I thank you for coming on and talking about accessibility. When you get your
No
new
problem.
device, maybe you can come on again and demonstrate it for us. That would be
Sure.
nice. Oh, okay. And, thanks again for coming and, talking to us about accessibility and what it means for you in your life and how it helps.
Yep, no problem.
I am more than my developmental disability. I am a coworker. a college graduate, an artist, independent, a musician. I'm a person. Look beyond my developmental disability.
In the heart of every community, there are people who walk among us, fulfilling a calling that's more than work.
They are direct support professionals, people who transform lives through their dedication and support.
They are the champions who believe in empowering people to achieve their full potential.
For them, it's not just a job. It's about making a real difference.
Every smile they bring creates moments that matter.
It's more than work. It's a journey.
Join us in a career where your impact means you help someone grow and learn.
Where every day you're not just going to work.
You're becoming a part of someone's world.
Become a direct support professional
and build a career with meaning.
It's more than work.
It's a legacy of support
and enrichment.
Your calling is waiting.
Join us and change your world.
Apply now to be a direct support professional.
I'm here to interview our guest, Carol, to talk about accessibility. Welcome, Carol.
Thanks, Chester. Thanks for this opportunity.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why accessibility is important?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I have been working in the field for many years. I started out as a special ed teacher. And earlier in my career, I think first year out of school, I was actually working with some of my students, and I was working on making different types of switches so they could access their systems. One person was able to access their radio, another person was able to access a yes or no button. And just realize that those simple things, by adding, at that time it was a little bit more advanced technology, but adding that technology helped a person to have control over their environment. You know, I find it so important for us in our work to have purpose and to see the opportunities of what more is possible. I'm looking at our world, looking at our field, looking at all the opportunities that we have for the use of accessibility, the use of assistive technology as a natural support to help with efficiencies, to help with, not even help, but provide control over your environment. We're all using the pieces of technology to, make choices, to make connections, to find information, and to have this ability for all.
I think that's so important because I think as far as accessibility go and, with the internet and, computers and things, people take it for granted. I might tell someone I will be better assisted if my screen can talk and, my screen reader can, read the screen. And then if they don't ask if I'm having trouble or have a hard time, connecting or using, accessibility, they'll say, oh, well, your computer talks and it'll let you know. So they think that all of the accessibility is there and it's finished, but they don't understand that if my reader is on, it will read whatever is on the screen. Or if people are talking and I'm in a meeting doing a presentation and the chat room is on, that it's going to repeat what it hears and what it sees because it's trying to communicate to me. Oh, sorry about that. Speaking of technology, that was my phone saying, what was on the screen.
Yeah, really great point. And Chester, what I always find fascinating about technology is, where we've come. Sometimes we have to look, a couple of years back and see what things that we took as luxuries, You know, that when I first got my first computer, I thought that that was just, I'm in awe. I have a computer. But now it's turned out to be a necessity. It is an arm to how we work, how we communicate, and that all people should have access to this type of technology.
Yes. And you were saying how you adapted things that were around you for the people to be able to use. And that's important because sometimes it only takes a little simple, you know, adjustment here, adjustment there, and it makes things accessible. I know when, they first came out with video games, my sisters and brothers and my nieces and nephews would help me with the games. So I learned how many spaces to move down to get to start the game, how many spaces to move to the right. And then when they came out with like some of my favorite stuff like football and basketball and baseball, I learned how to do those things. But now, which a lot of the companies now are coming out with, accessible video games. I have an Xbox over by my TV that I play, and people are always tell me, how can you play Xbox? You can't see. I said, you don't need to, because now the they've come out with accessible video games and they're trying to make more of them accessible. It's like the Madden 24, it's totally accessible. In fact, on the screen, you can put on accessibility and it reads everything on the screen. So I can pick my teams, which is the Buffalo Bills. And I can also pick, the players, what players I want, set up my team, set up the speed for the computers and things. So the technology has come a long way to, help. And now your TVs are, accessible. I put the accessibility on my TV and it can tell me the stations and I don't have to ask anyone anymore. And I can set it up and I can set the DVR on my cable. So it's a lot of things that's possible for people. They just don't know or haven't experienced it. What
Can I just add one more point?
Yes.
You bring up a really great point. Many of the companies, if not all of them, have a whole department on accessibility features. If you go on to Google, Apple, and I'm just naming a few, that there are whole departments, whole research teams that really focus on the accessibility features, what's currently on the system and what they're developing moving forward. So, as we move forward and we have those thoughts of like what more is possible on these devices, I would suggest, reaching out to these companies and offer suggestions. That's how we learn. That's how we end up getting innovation, new technology. So
Yes.
thank you for bringing that up.
What would you suggest that, in your field of work and, working with people and, working with agencies, would you suggest would be the most, need for accessibility? Because I know, iPads can be adapted to, whatever the person's needs are, cognitive or visual or hearing impaired and other things. But what would you say would be the most that people would need, people that and work with? And
Yeah, so I'm going to start one step back, if that's okay with you, Chester.
yes, definitely.
When even with myself is, to look at bringing on technology. And I use the word technology, it sounds so clinical, but really it's the mainstream stuff, the things that we can buy at, Best Buy, Target, Walmart, the smart devices, the iPads, exactly what you mentioned. But bringing that in as the first level of support. Before, certainly staffing is absolutely critical, but sometimes, some modified or, just some mainstream technology can help support a person. And it really depends on the person, the type of technology. There are so many different systems out. For example, if somebody needed a little bit more support with medications, you could start with the less involved, which is a simple, what they call app on your phone or on your iPad as a reminder of, which medications you need to take, and maybe even a little picture. So you can certainly start with that. Or you can go to the grocery store or the pharmacy and end up getting the containers for, Monday through Friday, AM and PM for your medication. And then depending again on the person and on their needs, it could even be the use of what they call a medication dispensing unit. And there's so many on the market. Some are, 30, 60-day supply for the medications, and some maybe an 8-day supply that is a little bit more portable. So if you're a traveler and you want to just take your medication. So it may not necessarily, and I think your question was, on a particular type of equipment, and it really is going to be depending on the person.
Yes, and that's where our thought in our field, person-centered, comes into play, because you center the, accessibility and the design around the person. So, what will work for that person. I wish I had all the things that I've come up with in my life that was accessible. I think I could have made some money on them, because it was a lot of, adapting things over to make it accessible, but not only for myself, but, for other people, and my family members were like, oh, how did you come up with that? That's a good idea. And even in your house, you come up with certain things in your kitchen to make it accessible.
Absolutely. And a lot of the stuff is on the market and reasonably priced. And I think about just some modifications on our home. My husband and I, when I go outside, I want to make sure that the lights come on. So nowadays, and this has been the last couple of years, you can buy a motion detector light bulb. So you don't have to buy the whole unit, very inexpensive. So as soon as you walk by a light, it turns on. You could do dusk to dawn light bulbs, which again are very inexpensive. But a lot of these things you can just buy on Amazon. So it's not necessarily what they used to be, really kind of more, not high-end technology, but more technology, as now they're just mainstream.
Yeah. I have a question for you. And I know, in your, working in the field, one thing that I find that is difficult as far as people with disabilities, when they make devices for us or whatever, they set the price so high until you almost can't, afford some of the devices. That's why we have to work with our state and our governors and our legislators to really look at that. I know now I'm going to be on a few committees to talk about accessibility and the cost of making things accessible. What do you think about that? Or do you have some ideas? I know that you said you've been working with it for a while, how, this could play a part.
Absolutely. I think too is sometimes when technology comes first on the field, it's a little bit more expensive. And I'm going to really date myself on this, but when calculators came on, in I'm going to say the 80s, they were incredibly expensive.
$120 for 4 functions.
Thank you, Michael. But now they're more readily available, and sometimes you can get freebies, or now they're on your phone. So I think new technology coming on the field or coming into our world may be costly initially, but over time the prices are going to go down. But we certainly don't want to wait. I'm going to offer you some suggestions here, or the listeners some suggestions. We're very fortunate in New York State. There is what they call the Trade Center. There's, I believe, 12 of them throughout New York State, and I'd be more than happy to provide you with the landing page for that. But you can try out technology. So if you aren't sure and something's pretty costly, I would reach out to your trade center and see if they have that particular device that you could try before you make that financial commitment. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if you are wanting to move forward and things are very costly, here are some suggestions. One is sometimes you can find funders to help support you and through simple grants. But one thing that just recently happened, OPWDD put in proposed waiver language to CMS, and that was sometime in the summer of 2023. October 1st, 2023, that waiver language was approved from CMS. And it's really basically saying that individuals who are enrolled in HCBS services and living in a non-certified home, that they would have access to funds for technology. That's a big deal. So you do have the access to this technology. And it certainly has to be exactly what you were saying, Chester, earlier on. It has to be person-centered. You don't want to buy devices just because they're shiny. They look really cool. You know, somebody else has it. I think I may want this, but the technology that we use day to day help us. They are our natural support, whether or not it's the iPhone, the iPad. You know, it sounds like you have a smart television. There's always a reason behind these pieces of technology. It's just not to have on our shelf, but really has to have a purpose. But keep looking. You know, it's just not one company that has these things. And you, both of you, Chester and Michael, you bring up a really great point, is looking towards the universities, especially universities that have engineering and computer science. So if you're stumbling upon, you know, an obstacle that there's nothing on the market, engineering students, computer science students always need, I'm going to use the term capstones, but they need projects and they want projects. So go to those entities and speak about, you know, the potential obstacle, and hopefully they can help to design something that is more accessible and can help us to navigate. But great point.
Yes, I have here, this is a Braille computer, and the keys are shaped like a Braille writer. So I type on this, and at the bottom is where the Braille would come up. See, and it reads across the bottom. It's a small device, but you can carry it with you, and you hook it up to the computer, and it charges. It lasts about 6 hours or more.
Wow.
And it's helpful, but they advanced a lot with them. But this is my own personal one, but you can get ones for the office. This is only a 14 cell, because across the top are the different cells. But it's helpful when I want to not use my brailler, you know, by hand, and I can type like a number or something, and I put it in on the hook it to the computer, and it, when I type, it translates it into print, and then it'll translate print emails and stuff into Braille. But the only thing why I don't use it all the time is because it's not perfect, but it helps. So we have devices, but it was very expensive to, you know, that's what I was saying before about for people with disabilities, you know, they make things more expensive, but I think now with some of the things like you were saying with the waiver, that's going to help. I mean, what advice would you have to people, you know, before we, you know, end, that would be helpful for them if they wanted to find out, you know, different types of information that you know that you could use, or you would, if someone came to you with a question?
Yeah, that's a really great point. So when I started at New York Alliance, it's going to be, I think, 9 years next month. One of the things that I always envisioned was a list of, you know, types of technology, so people could go to that on, you know, a master list. I'm looking for, you know, a certain type of toothbrush. But what I found over the last several years is technology is ever changing so quickly that as soon as I put together a master list of the type of technology, it's obsolete. So my suggestion is just doing, and I'm not just saying a Google search, but just go on to your search engine and kind of type in what you're looking for. So it could be, a toothbrush that is, I don't know, more user-friendly or easier to hold, or it could be, a device to connect to, an eye gaze or something like that. But I would just do a very simple Google search. And then the second thing is, as you move forward, you may want to touch base with the trade centers. Again, there's 12 of them in the region in New York State, but they also have staff who really have a good sense of technology. So if you're at a stumbling point and you just can't find what you're looking for to address whatever barrier you're encountering, reach out to, other people who are very much into technology. And that's what I think we learned from each other. Just listening to both Michael and you the last couple minutes, I learned about technology. So there's not going to be a one source. So, kind of tap, a colleague on the shoulder and have a conversation about technology.
Yes, educate each other.
Yeah.
And, I thank you for coming on and answering questions and providing us with information. And hopefully, as you learn more, you will be able to come back and, update us on some of the things. On the last point, you were talking about remembering calculators. I can tell you, I remember in school, I used an abacus.
Oh, yes.
With the beads and stuff, we got real good at it and could do it real fast. And the next thing you know, they said, oh, you don't need that anymore. We have, calculators and things like that you can use. And so, that just shows you how technology works. But thank you very much. And hopefully we will be able to do this again. And I will turn it over to BJ.
For final thoughts on this episode of Accessing Life, we go to BJ's Corner. Self-advocate BJ Stasio uses his decades of experience making change for people with developmental disabilities to offer some perspective on today's discussion.
Hello, everybody. This is BJ today. Wasn't that an awesome show? Thank you, Chester. Thank you, Carol. As I reflect back on all of my technology needs in my life, I have voice-activated software that I use to type my emails when I want to send emails to people, because I was so used to talking on the phone before technology came, but now there's an easier way for me to do emails, and I have a automatic door button for my apartment door that sets me free to go out in the community and do those things I need. And while I was listening, I was reflecting back. I always had to wait for somebody to open the door for me, but now I don't. I can be free to do what I need to do, and it's important. And what Carol and Chester were talking about is very important. We need to utilize the technology that can help us lead the richer lives that we want. Richer lives are important for all of us to have, because we live in the community, and sometimes to get out in the community, we need the technology. Like my power wheelchair that I use is technology that I use to do what I need to do. Now, many years ago, they didn't have the types of power chairs that could do everything my chair could do. And talk to your peers, talk to the colleges, Carol mentioned, because there are colleges with students looking for projects, and that was a really good suggestion. And the trade centers that Carol talked about, I didn't even know about that, so I will be looking that up for more things for me to make my life more accessible to me, because I'm always saying to myself, why can't this be accessible? Why can't that be accessible? But you know what? Even I have to do the research to find out what is accessible. So this was an awesome show, and accessibility only happens if we speak up and say something. So have a good day, have a good week, and keep advocating. Thank you. This is BJ Stasio.
Accessing Life is a podcast produced by the New York State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, known as OPWDD. The producer is Michael Orzel, host Chester Finn, and commentator BJ Stasio. To learn more about the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, supports and services, go to opwdd.ny.gov.